you also have the energy in the body to deal with it, like the recovery.
You're also dumb and put too much weight on the bar.
You're dumb and you're young, but you also have recovery on your side when you're young.
Yeah.
So I would say, as a question that came up, as someone who's 50 years old, do you still train to failure versus what you were like in high school?
Yeah.
And the question really is what's
bringing you a reasoned approach to health and fitness. This is the Phi Life Podcast.
All right, welcome to the show. I'm John Barban. With me is Brad Pilon. And I got a question today about training to failure. And is it necessary, but also is it necessary through all the decades of your life?
Okay.
So when you first started training, when we first started training in high school, we basically, I think, almost every younger guy thinks they have to train to failure, probably started thinking that way. That's our initial thought process and how we started. You also have the energy in the body to deal with it, like the recovery.
You're also dumb and put too much weight on the bar.
You're dumb and you're young, but you also have recovery on your side when you're young.
Yeah.
So I would say, as a question that came up, as someone who's 50 years old, do you still train to failure versus what you were like in high school?
Yeah.
And the question really is, what's failure? So I always said there's two kinds of failure. There's form failure. So there's when you're in very strict form on the exercise and you can't do another rep in perfect form.
Right.
Then there's absolute movement failure, where you can get loose with your form. And I don't mean like completely sloppy reps, but a little bit looser than being like perfectly strict.
Yeah.
And then there's that failure where the muscle does, where your body,
I'm going to have to pull the weight off of you.
You just can't move at all. So I'm sure anyone listening can kind of get the idea of like a perfectly strict rep is not quite the same as giving a little bit of body movement to get the weight to move a bit more. Also, there is the speed that you're doing the reps. There's a different kind of failure when you're going with a slower negative, and that's going to hit a different failure at a different point than if you're just doing a quicker rep, or if you're doing a power style rep where the weight's a bit lighter, but you're moving the weight fast on purpose. So there's all different styles of reps, and you're going to arrive at a kind of failure on each one of them. But in general, it's just when you just can't complete another rep in the form that you've chosen. So it's either a slow rep, a quick rep, kind of just a flow set where the reps it's not slow or fast. It's sort of just a flow. You're going to get to the point where you just can't move. And it's just how strict are you through that set.
Right.
I'm not convinced that you have to hit that momentary failure where you can't move at all. But I think you got to be within a rep or two of that if you expect to continue to stimulate some kind of adaptation.
Yeah.
If you don't get close enough, then you're not really stimulating any adaptation. Now, it may not be that bad of an idea as you get older, that it's at least preventing you from atrophying. Like at some point, like I'm 50 years old, at some point, I'm not just going to gain any more muscle. I'm just stopping my body from losing muscle. And I don't necessarily think you have to push it that close to true muscular failure for that purpose. And I've been doing this experiment for a number of years now where I've been able to maintain muscle mass over time. And I don't really push to the point where I can't move the weight anymore, but I'm within a rep or two of not being able to push the weight anymore.
Yeah. I would say, the way I train, it's always with a prescribed set and rep when I'm doing progression. So I will hit failure by mistake once every 6 or 7 weeks. Where I just I did not have it in me. My bigger concern, and I think this is for people who maybe have brains like mine, fake failure. So I'll be working out a way to set and I'll be like, that was pretty good. And I'll stop. And I realize I had like 5 more reps in the tank. I just got bored. Yeah. I got in the all of 20 seconds it took me to curl a barbell. By the time I got to 8, I was bored enough to think, yeah, I'm done. And then, no, you know what? I could have gotten 4 more here. So fake failure, which is just like a mental fatigue, or I'm thinking about work while I'm working out, that can you just get out of it. That I think is a really bad type of failure. Because I think the idea of not being sort of totally in the lift, not only is it robbing you of reps that would have been sort of growth potential reps, but I think also heighten your chance of injury because you're not paying attention. right? You're out of it. So that is the bigger issue. So, but in terms of actual true, to your point, like the breakdown of a movement failure, to me, you still got to get close, like you said. The difference being close to 50 as opposed to close to 20 is the 20 minutes of warm up we now have to do to allow our bodies to hit that level, right? Because the only other part of sort of another form of fake failure I hate is you're squatting, you're benching, whatever you're doing, and it's like ooh, shit, ooh, and you put something away because something kind of
That's not
tweaked
failure.
funny.
Yeah, that's avoiding an injury.
Yeah, but it's like that sudden, like I can't do any more reps, but I didn't hit growth potential level reps either.
No.
So the 25 minute warm up is fine, right? Like to get in one or two good sets where you're like, that was close to failure. But what was failing was the muscles I was trying to work as opposed to my brain or the joint, if that makes sense.
That's a really good point. I didn't even consider the idea of a fake failure, but I bet you a lot of people convince themselves they're done when they have more in the tank. I mean, you'll find this out really quickly if you have a training partner or not. It's easy to give up when you're alone, but if you have a partner, you'll probably push harder. Even if you just have somebody spotting you, you probably just push harder just because you know you have someone there. Also, certain exercises, you don't want to train them to failure. Like you don't really train deadlifts for reps to failure. It doesn't even make any sense. Like if for that particular lift, for a deadlift, you never want to fail. You want to complete the rep perfectly and then put it down, and that's that. There's no such thing as failing in the middle of a deadlift. And you really don't want to be trying to pull the fifth or sixth deadlift off the floor and fail in the middle of the pull. You're just asking for an injury. So this even the concept.
And you're not going to do that like 5 times in a workout at the end of every set.
You're not going to be perfect. I want to get to halfway through a deadlift 5. Yes, no, that is absurd. There's only certain exercises you would even train to failure, like that kind of failure.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of training even a squat like to failure. That's a very complicated movement that once you're warmed up, once you're in a groove squatting, I don't think you should be struggling under a squat where it's taking a number of seconds to complete the next rep. That's just asking for injury. And there's just too many things that can go wrong. It's too technical of a lift. I'd rather see you flow one rep to the next through to the end and sense that the next rep is likely going to be the one where you do start to break down. You don't want to get to that breakdown rep. I don't think so. I think I think you can stimulate adaptation without getting to that rep where you actually start falling back down in the middle of this. You just don't want to be in that position. So I totally disagree with squatting to absolute failure or deadlifting to absolute failure. That doesn't even make sense.
Any exercise to failure where a part of your body is pinned. So I will do a barbell curl or a dumbbell curl to failure. I won't do a preacher bench to failure because you're sort of locked in. I will push up. I will do gymnastics rings. I will even do dips to failure. I hate bench press to failure because you're locked in. Once that weight is unracked, you are pressed into that bench and you're pinned, right? So exercises where I feel really pinned in, where you can't cheat the movement to save a joint or muscle, those ones worry me. So I like having the ability to like, okay, wait, this got a bit too heavy. A squat you could dump, a deadlift you could even let go. I'm not advising on those ones, but the ones where you're pinned in, I don't like that feel. Any bicep tear I've ever seen has been on a deadlift or a preacher bench.
Yeah.
The one where you're locked in, right? So I like having just a little bit of sway there, allowed to use my body a bit more. But yeah, I don't, you take the most explosive exercise. Okay, nobody sprints to failure. They sprint to 100% effort, but they don't run until they fall over.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
I want all of your sets to be how you would approach training for, I don't know, a 100-meter sprint, 100-yard sprint, right? You do a couple at 50, a couple 60. You do maybe an all-out at 100. But you wouldn't go to the point where you can't finish the 100 meters because you've run so hard you've fallen over or passed out. Right?
That's a good way of saying it.
Yeah.
I think it's something to do with like the definition or the thought of what failure even looks like or feels like under each exercise.
Yeah.
So I don't want people to get the wrong idea that you just sort of like wuss out on these sets.
Yeah, no
like
half-assing it. Yeah.
No, you don't half-ass it, but I would rather see you complete 11 or 12 reps, and even the 12th rep is in perfect form.
Yeah.
And that takes a little bit of training to get used to understanding this, knowing the 13th rep was going to be a mess.
Yes.
But I'd rather not you actually do the messy rep. I'd rather you finish before you get to the ugly looking rep where the weight does start coming back towards you.
Yeah. Your bench press the last rep shouldn't look like you're kayaking, right?
No,
your squat, you shouldn't look like an accordion and your deadlift shouldn't be you hitching it up, right?
Yeah.
So a bicep curl, once you gotten a little bit of body English into it, but it shouldn't get to the point where you look like you're like heaving it into the air.
Right.
It's just, that's a different exercise.
And this comes back down to what kind of rep is it? Is it a power rep? Power reps are meant to be quick. Like that's a different kind of training. Like imagine, picture an Olympic lift. Like those are meant to be fast.
Yeah.
Versus a maximum weight lift that is very, very slow. Like picture a power lift bench press or a power lift deadlift that actually moves kind of slowly.
Yeah.
I mean, one of your clues, depending on how heavy you're going, but let's say you're going relatively heavy, one of your clues is the reps can start to get a little slower.
Yes.
But that's assuming you don't already have a thought of how fast the rep should be going in the first place. So if you're purposely trying to do a 1 second push and a 3 second, let's say on the bench press, 3 seconds down, 1 second up or whatever. Well, now you're talking about failing on that rep scheme.
Yes.
Like you can't actually maintain the 3 seconds down anymore, but you could, if you sped up your reps, you could do a few more reps.
Yeah.
So it's, what kind of failure are you even talking about? It's got to be related to the style of rep you're doing in the first place anyways.
Yeah.
So most people are thinking max weight, and max weight as the rep is already kind of slow. And as you get close to failure, they get even slower until you just can't go anymore. That's only one kind of failure.
Yeah. And again, this is the whole, why are you training? What are you training for? So if you're an athlete and you're doing power stuff, then failure is when that bar just got a little too slow. But if you're just training for aesthetics, then you're trying to, I don't know, the minute you're doing deltoid lateral raises and it's not a deltoid moving anymore, your body's jerking, then you're done. Right. But if you're a power lifter and all you're trying to do is move that weight maximally, then you're done when that weight doesn't move anymore. Right. Like it's the definition changes as well. But for anyone listening, chances are, you're kind of a blend of those things. So just depending on what you're doing, the minute you're failing based on your goal of those reps or sets that's your failure. Right. So if the goal was to get through it with really good form and you no longer have good form, you're done.
Yeah.
If your goal was bar speed and the bar is not moving quickly, you're done. If the goal was max weight and that weight isn't moving, you're done.
You're done.
Yeah.
It could also, there's another way to think about this that you could lay on top of all of those, is when the mind muscle connection starts breaking down and you're not sensing the rep as you were intending to sense the rep. And you're noticing that instead of sensing the muscle itself, your focus has switched to moving the weight around.
Yes.
Because your focus
you're almost,
should be, you should be muscle focused, at least for body composition, not for sport specific. Sport specific, you're attempting to move yourself through space, or you're attempting to move the weight through space, or it's like it is movement specific and it's not a mind muscle connection. But if you're trying to build muscle, now you're talking about a mind muscle connection. And if you're starting to break that connection, starting to be distracted into, I just got to move the weight, that's kind of your clue that it's failing. Without really recognizing, oh, am I really at the last rep? Like if your focus switches from feeling your chest on a bench press to be like, oh my God, I just have to get this bar to move. Yeah. That's the clue that this whole thing's falling apart.
That's a great
point. And it doesn't need to start coming back down on you. But if you lose that connection, that's the fail.
Yeah. You should be present in the lift.
Yes.
And that was my thing with the fake failure, is the minute you lose that presence, you're either just putting the weight away because you got bored, or you're no longer lifting with that intention. You're just trying to keep the bar from crushing your neck kind of thing. That's not where you want to be. Yeah. You
can also arrive at that lack of ability to stay present throughout a workout. You could find yourself going through a workout and then you sort of just run out of neuromuscular, I don't know, energy. I don't even know how to say it. You just don't have it, focus or ability to push anymore. And I'm sure everyone listening who's done like a legit push it type workout for any length of time senses, have had this sense where, the the program says I'm supposed to do 3 more sets, but I really don't think I can get back under the bar. And
Yeah.
and you've legitimately been pushing. In that case, you probably have just hit systemic failure.
Yeah.
Like now system won't do it. You could maybe drop the weight, but that's kind of not what your goal was, to just go lighter and lighter. You've hit systemic failure. You just can't go anymore. That happened to me last week.
It'll be different day to day, right? Depending on your sleep patterns and
and if you just sense like, man, I thought I was going to get two or 3 more sets in here, but I can't. No matter how much rest between sets, you just never arrive back at, okay, now I'm ready to go. Like if you can't get back there in the 2 to 3 to 4 minutes, then you're done at that point. You're done for the day, let alone failure on that one exercise.
Yeah. So to answer the question, I still think failure is important, but it has to be clearly defined. It's one of those things you have to define before you get to it, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what we've been trying to do here.
Yeah. In my workouts, going forward, failure is going to be when that mind-muscle connection breaks, when the bar speed slows down, when I'm not there anymore, or it's like, when that bar does not move and that weight is too heavy, that's failure. But it should almost be defined before you start and not halfway through the workout, depending on how you're feeling that day.
Yeah, exactly. Define it before you start. And the definition has to be specific to the style of sets and reps that you're doing for that day.
Yeah, exactly. And for guys, just warm up. And by warm up, I don't mean like walk on a treadmill for 10 minutes. I mean, do a little bit of treadmill walk, and then all the movements that are going to be associated with the workout you're going to do, and then that exact movement at a lighter weight, and then different bar speeds. Like really warm up before you go at it. Otherwise, failure will be the first rep or first set.
Yeah, exactly. Avoiding an injury is not failure. That's a lack of warm up. Or you need to go get therapy and get that whatever that joint, a muscle, get it sorted out so it's back to health. But if all you're doing is avoiding an injury, that's not failure at all. That means you're not ready to actually push.
Yeah, when the target muscle is not doing target muscle stuff, that's what you're.
Yeah, that's another way to say it. So I don't know. Have we even answered this anymore?
I think so. I think yes, it's still important. It has to be defined clearly for your workout, and then you have to warm up enough that the failure is being caused by that and not some form of fake failure.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And,
clear as mud.
I guess to finish the point, the question was asked by somebody who's in their 50s now and has been training since high school and was saying, do I still need to go to this degree? And as long as you meet all of those criteria we just said, then if you define it, you're warmed up, the muscle's warm, you honestly aren't just working around an injury. You can keep pushing that hard. If it feels safe and it feels okay, you can push that hard into your 50s and probably into your 60s too.
Absolutely.
All right, I think it's a good place to leave it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. We'll catch you guys later.
Peace.
Yeah.